Hey there, I'm Sully, and welcome to the Gun Club. Hey, folks, here back for another weekend update. Got a few things to touch on. Actually, not too much this week, although got a couple things I want to sort of throw rocks at and go in a little deep dive on a couple of incidents that have taken place. And as always, I know some of the stuff in the beginning is a little dark, but we get to a little bit of good news toward the end. We actually have a really cool good guy with a gun story. Again, doesn't make the mainstream media, but talks about a man defending his family against a couple of nasty, predatory SOBs who broke into his house and tried to terrorize them. And things didn't work out too well for those scumbags. So, hey, good news. Again, showing why we believe in 2A, why we believe in preparing and protecting ourselves, why we go to the range, why we train, why we drill. Because you know what? Tomorrow could be the day. Tonight could be the day. I don't know. You don't know. So, again, coming back to our good guy with a gun, and we're going to have a little fun with him and talk about his story a little bit. Like I said, thankfully, it has a rather happy ending, and we all could use that these days. First thing, I do have one little notable case update. Not a big one. Didn't even bother to really put a bunch of information in on it. If you recall, last week we had our idiot in Texas who was out shooting his AR-15 in the yard, had a few drinks. Neighbors said, could you hold it down? We're trying to get the baby to sleep. And he went over to their house and he shot 5 people because, that's what normal human beings do. This guy was the illegal alien who had been previously deported 4 times by Immigration's Customs Enforcement. We don't know what his status was at the time he shot the 5 people, but if he'd been previously deported 5 times, why was he in Texas? Why did he have an AR? Once again, bad guys with guns doing stupid stuff. Well, it now turns out that his wife, he was 38, his 52-year-old wife has also been arrested for helping him hide subsequent to his little antics. Pretty much, I think she's being charged with whatever the equivalence is to conspiracy after the fact as an accomplice, helping him hide from law enforcement, helping him secrete his location, get away, whatever the case may be. He was found 4 days later after the manhunt. Well, now it turns out that she was helping him hide and, sort of helping him along. So she gets to go and do some time too. She got charged as well. I don't think she got quite the bond he did because, well, she didn't shoot anybody, but she's going to be facing some legal ramifications for her idiotic actions in supporting his endeavors. So, hey, justice being served little by little. Onwards and upwards. Had a couple of cases I'm going to hit on for the incident report this week. One of them actually jumped off last week, and it was very new, very raw when he did this stream last week. And I said, look, I can't necessarily go into this because I don't know that much about it. I had seen clips of the videos, I had seen bits and pieces, but didn't really have a lot of details, and it was mostly speculation. As y'all know, I try to wait a little while to get good details and legit details rather than just repeat whatever the mainstream media talking heads are saying, because a lot of times it's proven to be very wrong. The Outlet Mall shooting down in Allen, Texas. Now, this one was particularly interesting. As you all know, I'm a hockey fan. There was actually supposed to be a hockey playoff about 150 yards from this mall in the same complex, and there was supposed to be a playoff game that night for the Allen All-Americans, and they had to cancel that. So we know if a shooting takes place and we have to cancel a hockey game, I'm going to be a little bit upset about it. In this case, we had a 33-year-old male who opens fire, ends up killing 8, wounding 7, several of them rather critically. Don't know if that number 8 is going to increase or not. One of the first victims shot, and this is really interesting, was a security officer from, I believe it was Allied Security Service. Now, I've worked in security many, many years ago. Right after I turned 18, I worked sitting out, checking in trucks at a gatehouse, doing that kind of stuff. And to me, there's sort of this little question in the back of my mind. I don't know, and I've been trying to research. Was this security officer armed, or was he just a guy standing there with a uniform doing traffic control or whatever the case may be? I think this sort of makes a little bit of a question for, now I'm not saying in private facilities like industrial facilities or inside offices or checking in, logging stuff or checking fire sprinklers. But if you're out in a public area like a mall and you've got security officers there, if these individuals are not trained and equipped, and when I say trained and equipped, I'm talking qualified armed officers, you know, what do we expect them to do in the case of an active shooter? What do we expect them to do in the case of an armed robbery? Well, they honestly become, their job is to observe and report and notify law enforcement pretty much. They can't intervene and they're really not set up to. And this tragedy just goes to show that unfortunately, sometimes the poor individual working security out there, he ends up becoming, well, shall we say, cannon fodder, unfortunately. And I feel bad for him and his family and his agency because here he was working security at a really nice outlet mall that, he ended up giving his life. And that sucks. That really does. But I think we can sort of make us think, okay, just because we're in a place and we've got security there, are they really set up to intervene given the nature of the violence in the world today? Do we need to rethink the concept of having unarmed security officers out there? Like I said, I've worked unarmed security, I've worked armed security. When I worked armed security, we wore vests, we were trained and equipped, we were qualified with our firearms. We actually qualified at the state I worked in, we were actually required to qualify with a higher shooting score than the PD was. So I have a little bit of stubborn faith in our side, but it's okay. Now, so we have a security officer get shot. This individual who did the shooting basically parked his car, got out, and opened up on people with an AR-15. He also had a handgun on his person at the time and had several additional handguns and long guns in his car, along with quite a large ammo cache from what I'm seeing. The suspect was wearing a tactical vest. We don't know if it was actually body armor or not. We don't know if there were plates in it. He was wearing a tactical vest, like a carry vest. The pictures I've seen, you can clearly see multiple AR magazines stacked on the front of it. He was killed, however, by a law enforcement officer. Now, it's interesting to mention that the law enforcement officer was on scene at the mall. This individual was there for a totally unrelated call, heard gunshots ring out, goes toward the sound of the gunshots, sees this individual, engages with him, and puts the shooter down. Just with their service weapon, their standard sidearm, no long gun, no shotgun. So I think that's something we need to look at here when everyone talks about, the AR-15, the AR-15. Yes, the AR-15 is more powerful than the average handgun. It's a rifle. Any rifle is going to be more powerful, more ballistic power than a handgun. But, this individual was, taken down by a handgun. So anyone who wants to look at the AR-15 as some magical mystery weapon that, if someone's got an AR-15, they can just do whatever. No, not necessarily. Wrong answer. Nice try. Not necessarily. The individual, although they had an AR-15, although they possibly, one media report says body armor. I can't tell whether it's got plates in it or not, so I'm not going to call it body armor. It appears to be a tactical load support vest, but he was taken out by law enforcement with a standard handgun. Now, that law enforcement officer, were they a little bit more trained maybe? Maybe they were a little bit more disciplined. So again, just because a standard, sidearm carry taking on an AR-15, it can be done. It can be very easily done. And it's proven here. Additionally, everyone who's wanting to get their draws on a wad over, oh my God, it's another AR-15. Yeah, well, it's the most popular rifle sold in the country, so chances are we see a lot of them. Much in the same way as if a Ford 150 pickup truck was the most popular vehicle sold, we'd see a shit ton of them on the road. Okay, but if this guy couldn't have gotten the AR, what did he have in his car? Several additional handguns and long guns. So if we magically take our magic wand and play Peter Pan and say, whoops, we can get rid of the AR-15 and that's going to fix everything, bullshit. This guy still could have shot up them all. Would have been just as easy. Quite frankly, the way he approached it and the way he did it, tactically, he didn't do it, in my opinion, very smart, but maybe that's why he only kills 8, wounds 7, and ends up getting his birth certificate revoked by one officer with a handgun. Didn't do a very good job tactically. Sorry, but then again, on the good side, this cockroach is one less we'll have to worry about. Now, there's been a lot of information come out about the subject. And when I say information, we're going to use the dreaded air quotes, information, because somehow people have found out all about him. And I'm going to sort of do truth and fiction on some of this all about him stuff. He had been living in an extended stay motel down in the Dallas area. It was about 30, 35 miles away from the actual site of the mall shooting. 30 miles away. He had been in the Army in 2008, but was removed due to having issues within a 3-month window. He never finished basic training. Basically, looks like he might have started basic and not been able to really fit into military life. And, we're at a point right now where, people say, oh, the military needs everyone they can get. Yeah, they'll wash people out when they can't get through basic training, can't follow simple orders. This guy may not have been able to march straight for all I know. I don't know. But 3 months, couldn't even finish basic training. He comes out 8 years later in 2016. He works as a licensed security guard. For about a 4-year window, he had a security guard licensed. Now, this is fun. It was an armed security guard license by the state of Texas. He had passed every background check to be a licensed armed security officer. So if he's able to pass all these background checks and everything else, well, we need better background checks. Better background than what they do for armed security. Again, we hear these things come out and everybody has a great solution. Well, we need to do this. We need to do that. Look at what this guy, again, this individual, piece of spam, cockroach, whatever we're going to call him. Let's look at him for a minute. He's able to pass all the background checks you want him to pass. He was perfectly legal owning an AR-15. He was perfectly legal to own a whole gaggle of firearms. Okay? He had been in the military. Okay? His AR-15, his super gun, didn't do him that well because he got taken out pretty quickly after only putting 15 shots on people. So, didn't do real well with his AR-15. Now we get into, he supposedly had various neo-Nazi tattoos. I've seen one of a swastika on his chest. I've seen another one of what appears to be like an SS tattoo. And I mean, there's tattoo shops around that won't even do that kind of stuff. You go in there and you ask for that, you get your ass kicked. We think possibly he did it himself. I've heard possibly self-done or something like that. And then it comes out that, oh, well, he had links to white supremacist content on a social media account. Now, this report came out within 24 hours of the shooting. And we'll figure, okay, well, we know the shooter's name, so we look him up on Facebook, right? Okay, well, what Facebook? What about Instagram? Or what about Twitter? What does this Twitter say? No, this was on a white supremacist, a content site, was on a obscure Russian media platform. And when obscure Russian media, when I talk to somebody with knowledge of Russian culture, they say this was the Russian equivalent to an old version of MySpace. But yet, for some reason, this guy, they find this content this quickly within 24 hours, they can find this guy's content on it. And they said, well, is it really his? And they said, well, there were pictures of his driver's license on it and pictures of other stuff with his date and social security number on it. Folks, do y'all post your driver's license information and social security information on your social media? Why would somebody post a bunch of IDs and driver's licenses and things like that on any social media? Why would this guy have an obscure Russian social media platform? I don't know, remember the name of it is Das Vidanya, whatever. Okay. There's a lot of questions about that. Additionally, he had bunches of posts on it, but no interactions with the post. Nobody's clicking like, no one's clicking share, no one's commenting underneath. Just, okay, here's this site on this obscure platform that he posted 50 or 100 pictures on that are all very they're all white supremacist, Hitler was right kind of crap. Okay. If that doesn't make you suspicious of that content that's just all over this Russian platform, okay. Additionally, he never used any slurs in it. Typically, if somebody has that kind of stuff in their heart, if they're referring to a individual of African American descent, they're going to throw a few N bombs around. If they're throwing at somebody who is LGBT, they may use, the F slur somewhere in there. There were no slurs on it. There was no real interaction. It wasn't like he was a member of a bunch of groups that they're all sitting there talking about this stuff. Everybody who's looked at the account has pretty much questioned it. I haven't gone through and individually looked at it yet, but there were some definite questions about, A, why would someone have this obscure Russian media platform? And the only answer to that possibly is that he or she was doing it because there was very limited moderation on that site. You could post that crap and get away with it. Okay. But why don't they have any friends or interactions on that site? I mean, after all, you're this 33-year-old white supremacist. You're posting stuff for quite some time on social media, but yet it's nothing there. Why post blindly into the ether? Think about your last 100 posts. If no one said anything, interacted in any way, friended it, shared it, nothing, would you even post on that site anymore? Makes me question. Also supposedly had some favorable references to the Covenant shooting in Tennessee. Okay. Now, we don't know this gentleman's orientation or his gender or anything else. So could there be something in there? We don't know. I can't speculate on it. What I do say is something's weird. 33 years old, living in a no-tell motel, extended stay motel. He grew up in the area. His parents have been interviewed. They can't believe he did it. Oh, interesting to note, his parents, when they were interviewed by law enforcement, they had to get a translator in. They didn't even speak English. They're not comfortable enough in English to be able to speak English. They got a translator to discuss him with his parents. Really doesn't sound like your average white supremacist. Not saying he's not, but I kind of question of it being too easy. I kind of question the fact that a reporter, a researcher is that, Johnny on the spot, that they're able to nail this white supremacist media content and found it in an hour, 2 hours, 12 hours. Again, if it was MySpace, Twitter, one of the normal ones that we all use, we all play on, okay, that's fine. But some obscure Russian site? Who the hell came up with that crap? I've got questions. The fact you've got favorable references to the Covenant shooting, white supremacist content, a lot of weird stuff there. Again, we're sort of going to leave him where he's at. I think it's interesting also when they've looked back over, there were documentation that he had the AR-15 rifle possibly back as early as December 2021, and that he has been scouting them all since May of 2022. Lots of electronic documentation showing him taking pictures of them all, May of 22, subsequently to that. That makes me wonder on a lot of things. And as I go through and I work these cases, I look at them and I try to research them more and more. That tells me a lot. First of all, waiting periods. Would that have helped? No, not really. He had the gun a year and a half ago. But if he's been scouting this mall since May of 2022, I'd love to know who he's been discussing it with, communicating with, friends. Have they found any contact of anything? If you've been thinking of doing something for the last year, you mentioned it to someone, if that's legit. If you've been planning this for the last year, you've mentioned it, you've talked to someone. Again, I would love to know what's going on here. But the fact he's scouted it repeatedly gives me the next question. We look at Covenant shooting in Tennessee, that active shooter said that she went to multiple locations, was unable to find one she liked, ended up going in there, had reportedly a big manifesto worth of planning, which, yeah, we can't hear about that, but yet we can get his Russian social media site sent out within a couple days. Why can't we see that one there? We know, again, this is about the 1-year anniversary of the Buffalo Top Supermarket shooting. We got his manifesto. We've got 180 pages of it. I've read it. We've got details on it in one of our streams where he talks about, I went there because they had no gun control, because they had massive gun control, and I knew I wouldn't meet any resistance. Did this guy go there and realize their security was unarmed, and therefore he wouldn't meet resistance? Given the fact that a lot of these shooters want to go for the highest body count, they typically aim for where they have the least resistance. A little bit more research found out that yes, the Allen Outlet Mall was a gun-free zone, Simon Properties. Gee, gun-free zones. Does this put it at what, 94%, 95% of the mass shooters in gun-free zones? So that isn't working. All that's doing is ensuring that these mass shooters have plenty of unarmed victims to go after. And we say, well, a waiting period, would that have worked? Well, he had the gun a year ago, so probably not. Okay. How about, Texas is now calling to raise the age to buy a rifle from 18 to 21 because that's going to help. Guy was 33. Once again, they're not willing to look at and solve the serious problems. They're taking steps that aren't going to solve a damn thing, which is why you, myself, everyone else are going to continue to have to deal with these idiots out there. Fortunately, that law enforcement officer, has a giant set of brass ones, and I'm talking about his collar brass, I'm sure, had a giant set of brass ones and went toward the shooting and did what they needed to do, thus revoking the bad guy's birth certificate. Deeper dive a little bit further, have another incident, and this one's kind of crazy, kind of sad, and I bring it up because of the fact it talks about some of what's going on just in the culture today. On May 1st, there were 7 bodies found at a rural Oklahoma home. The victims included 1 adult and 5 teens. The adult female was the wife of the shooter, her 3 children, and 2 of their friends who were at the house for a sleepover were all killed by this individual. Yeah, really nice guy, real class act, huh? She had married the POS 5/26 of 2022. Suspect 39 had been convicted of sexual assault in the first degree back in 2003 and had been in prison for 17 years. And he was due to go back to court for soliciting contact with a minor and possession of kitty-related material. You can just read between the lines there and guess what I'm saying. He reportedly had told a friend who he was texting with, who she's 23, and been a friend of his since he was in prison, that he was not going to return to prison. So, for whatever reason, he ends up killing the wife, killing the 3 kids, killing their 2 friends who were there on a weekend sleepover, and killing himself. Now, I bring this up because, it's a tragedy. We didn't hear anything about it. Why? I mean, we had, 6 people killed, 6 innocents killed, 5 of them teens. Well, it didn't fit the media's narrative. And this is media malpractice. If we're going to talk about this shooter in Texas that has 8 dead and 7 wounded, why do we not hear about this? Why can I sit down with people and they say, well, there's all these white supremacist shootings going on? Well, no, because this one in Oklahoma was not. It was just an idiot with a gun. Well, all these people are using AR-15s. There's cockroach use handguns. Why do we hear all about the ones that fit the media's narrative to play gun control bullshit? Media malpractice 101. And this is where, again, I get very frustrated with the media. It's why I dig through these and say, look, here's 2 shootings, 5 days apart, same area of the country. Both tragic, both awful, you know, both ended up in the death of the shooter, one at his own hand, one by the hand of law enforcement responding to it. And why do we have one of them making national news with, again, all the stuff about a Russian social media site on the front page, whereas this guy, well, maybe if he hadn't been able to get a gun, he had been convicted of violent felonies. Wonder how he got a gun. Maybe if the criminal justice system was a little tougher on him while he was inside, he wouldn't have been, soliciting kitty stuff within a couple of years of getting out. Maybe when he reported, he told his friend he wasn't going to go back to prison. If they had contacted someone and said, look, he's talking crazy, I don't like it, maybe, someone go get him when he's not expecting it, as opposed to the night before he's supposed to return to court. He killed 6 people. What would I know, right? Folks, again, the social decay. It's not a gun problem, even though this did involve a gun. It's pure social decay. The next chunk of social decay I offer you for today is in Detroit, Michigan. Now, this one's interesting. A gentleman goes into a gas station of an evening or at night, gets in a dispute with the clerk behind the counter over a $3 item that his card would not go through. He said he was going to take the item anyway. The clerk goes ahead and flips a switch, locking the doors to keep the guy from stealing the $3 item. The gunman then draws a gun, opens fire on everyone inside the store, leaving 1 dead and 2 wounded. The suspect then fled from the scene, apparently was able to force his way out of the door. Now, this gentleman was a convicted felon, a prohibited possessor. He's been arrested. He's in custody. Great, fine, wonderful. But when we look at the fact of what the hell's going on, prohibited possessor, again, previously convicted felon, should not be able to get their hands on a gun. They didn't get it through any legal, lawful means. Neither did our guy in Oklahoma on the last one. Just goes to show you can put anything you want as far as legal, lawful hurdles for people to buy guns. There's enough of a black market out there that a convicted rapist who did 17 years in prison can get a gun and kill people. This guy's got previous convictions. He can get a gun and shoot up a gas station. Once again, gun control laws only affect the actions or behavior of people who obey the law. And those are not our problems. Those are not the problems in society. So, it is what it is. Next one. This one's really sad. This one bugged me when I read it. Chicago, Illinois. Last weekend, an off-duty Chicago police officer was robbed and killed. This young lady was 24 years of age. She was returning home to where she lived with her mother after a night shift, long about 0200 in the morning. And she was robbed and killed by a pack of thugs. And I will say pack of thugs. And if you don't like me saying pack of thugs, well, pack of thugs. And when you hear the rest of this, you'll understand where I'm coming from. This young lady, 24 years old, was in the process, just finished up getting her master's degree in law enforcement and criminal justice and some related field. Chicago police officer, working in her hometown, working in her home city, trying to do something to make that cesspool better. And she didn't get killed in line of duty. No, she gets killed in front of her house by a group of 5 individuals who basically were out robbing anything they could. This was the 6th in a spree of robberies committed by this group in about a 2 or 3 hour period. This group got together, armed up, loaded up, and pretty much anyone they ran across that night between about midnight and 2 a.m. when they killed the off-duty police officer, they took whatever they had, cars, whatever, watches, phones, didn't matter. They, you get out of a car at a gas station, they walk up, there's enough of them there, they got the drop on you, they're going to take your car, they're going to take your keys, your phone, your wallet, whatever, just doing their thing. A wild wolf pack basically running loose that they ended up apparently seeing car driving home or car driving. I guess they followed her and pulled in behind her. She gets out of the car at her house and gets shot, feet from the front doorstep where she and her mother lived. This is a societal problem. The fact that this went on, ridiculous. And Chicago PD, they first realized something was up when the shot spotters went off after they shot her multiple times. They realized the shot spotters were going off. Law enforcement officers responding to the area found her deceased, one of their own. Actually, they transported her to the hospital where she was pronounced. 24-year-old young lady trying to do something positive for her community. Where's her name? Why are we not seeing her, glory be? Why not? How about what she did for her master's degree? How about what she did to make that city better? You know what? Again, media malpractice. We should be saluting this lady around the country for trying to do something to make the city of Chicago better. Rather than that, we're focused on some idiot in Texas because of the fact that, we found this white supremacist stuff on this Russian website. And I'm so skeptical of that, if you can't tell. Now, of the 5 individuals involved in this, 4 of them were taken into custody by SWAT after an armed standoff. Yeah, because these individuals took off somewhere. They got tracked down. Chicago PD was, of course, very interested in finding them. They barricaded themselves and had an armed standoff with the SWAT team, and then they finally were taken into custody without an incident. I kind of wish they had tried to shoot it out with SWAT, but, would have resulted in way too much paperwork. And then the 5th one was picked up separately. When you look at this is going on the streets of an American city. And I never thought, quite frankly, we would ever have, these 5 armed individuals, and they're all 19 to, I think the oldest one was 23 or 24, out here, just 5 robberies in a row. This was the 6th. Couple of cars, some other stuff, You got something they want, they don't care. And you better be able to defend yourself. And unfortunately, she wasn't able to deal with that. She tried, I'm sure. And so she lost her life. And, I guarantee you that none of these young men, it was their first run with law enforcement. Really interesting. We're going to be pulling the arrest records on them and see what I can find. Probably going to do that for next week's update. But it was interesting. 4 of them taken into custody. They just stand off with SWAT because you know what? That's what they're going to do. This is societal decay. And folks, I got to say, if you live in an area like this, I'm sorry. Find yourself, a decent place to live. A decent human being lost her life. A decent, upstanding, educated, intelligent young lady lost her life because this little pack of human refuse is going around robbing and stealing and everything else. Now, the kicker, the reason they did it is because one of the guy's girlfriends needed money to get her a new barbecue grill. Yeah, I said it. One of the gentlemen involved's girlfriends needed money to get a new barbecue grill. So what do? We don't get a job. We don't do this. No. We don't go out try to mow some lawns or wash some cars or do something. No. Me and a bunch of my buddies load up and go out and terrorize the population and terrorize anyone who we can. Go find some good, hardworking individuals. Put a gun in their face, take what they've got, shoot a cop, whatever. This is, the most foreign thing to me. This is something you would expect to see happening in a third world country. Unfortunately, many of our cities right now are turning into third world shooting galleries. Honestly, you couldn't get me to go to Chicago right now with a vest and all my, artillery. So it is what it is, but unbelievable. She out in a bad area? No, she's where she lives. She's at the house, probably she grew up in, for all I know. She lived there with her mom. 24 years old, finished up her master's degree. Class lady, dead from 50 Shades of Stupid. And I'm sorry, but that's, 50 Shades of Stupid is where I file it. Alrighty. Oh, piling in on the iced coffee tonight really hard if you hadn't figured that one out yet. Now we get something to have a little bit of a better taste in our mouth. First off, I need to give a big shout out to our friends over at Coffee Brand Coffee. They've got amazing premium coffees, different flavors, gourmet tea, gourmet cocoa. They've got 3 different kinds of cold brew coffee bags. I believe this is the Ethiopian I'm doing right now. We've got their K-Cups in our office, also at our training facility. We go through those pretty well there. If you're interested, go ahead, Valor SDS, see what you can go ahead and hook yourself up with some of the good stuff. 5% off. Honestly, Jeremy, it's, again, American-owned and operated coffee company. They roast it, they grind it, they ship it straight to you. No warehouse, no trucks, no nothing, no bullshit. And so, therefore, it comes in a hell of a lot fresher than anything you can get off any regular store-bought shelves. I know the blueberry cobbler was a big fan with our ladies here. They love that, and the French toast. And their newest strawberry and cream is, well, definitely a big one. All righty, let's see who we've got in the super chats. Mr. Old Man Marley, don't worry. None of the idiot libtards care about the real violence occurring in places like Chicago. None of the media care either. Yeah, and that's the problem. The media don't care. No one seems to care. And we've got American cities turning into just absolute war zones. I mean, Chicago's a war zone. I found this case when I was just looking at it and I was comparing, we can make the front page for 8 shot and 7 wounded in Allen, Texas. We can make the front page of everything. And that is a slow weekend for Chicago. That's a slow weekend in Baltimore. It's kind of a slow weekend in New York City. Unless, of course, something happens on one of the subways. Now, if, some guy starts a fight on the subway and ends up getting taken down with a carotid restraint, that can make the front page. The 67-year-old lady who he previously attacked and had warrants out for, no, her life didn't matter either. And, I grew up in New York City. I love my city. I, miss some things about it up there. I had a friend of mine who was asking me about going up there on vacation, and I basically, they were willing to pay my travel to go up there on vacation with them to show them around the city, show them around Manhattan, all the little cool stuff, the Statue of Liberty, Ground Zero, the Pit, Central Park, and everything else. And I told them I would not go to New York City for any reason whatsoever. Won't do it. Why? Because honestly, there's days that I watch what we see here, whether it be from New York or Chicago or any of these places, Detroit. I honestly think I'd be safer over in Kabul or somewhere else because, I'd rather be at at Bagram Air Base because at least over there, you're in a war zone. And at least over there, everyone's armed. In these cities, the bad guys are all armed. Chicago's gun control. Tell me how well it worked. We had 5 teenagers running around with guns to get money for a barbecue grill. What a shit show. But I do have a little bit of good news. And again, our good news here is a good guy with a gun. And, before I go too deep, I've got to say, I'm not happy that anyone died or lost their life in this. However, I am happy that the homeowner and his family are safe. And we're going to bring this up on the full size here. In Murfreesboro, Tennessee, 2 intruders broke into a residence. Okay, you live out, 45 minutes outside. Okay, in Jersey, worked there for 10 years. You can't get you back in there. Yeah, I actually grew up out on the island. I used to routinely go in on the old Silver Snail to Madison Square for games and concerts, or I used to go into take the Port Washington line over to Flushing to go to Shea. So, yeah, can't get you back there either. 2 masked intruders break into this residence in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. One of them is 42, one of them is 52. Now, these individuals, after they break in, they immediately tase the family dog. Now, folks, I'm a dog person, okay? I find out these cockroaches tased the family dog. That about pissed me off a little bit right to begin with. You can do a lot of things, but you don't tase a man's dog. Come on. What kind of garbage human are you to tase the man's dog? Really? They then hold the homeowner's son, who's in the living room, at gunpoint. The man is in the back bedroom. He's in one bedroom. His mother is across the hall in another bedroom. Now, he hears his son's crying, "Please don't shoot me. Please don't shoot me." Think about it. You're in a back bedroom. You hear your son in the living room screaming, "Please don't shoot me. Please don't shoot me." This man retrieved his lawful firearm, goes out, engages. One intruder ends up dying on the scene. One was later arrested with multiple gunshot wounds and is being held on a $700,000 bond. Folks, again, please understand, I'm not happy that anyone died. I never want to see someone die. I am pleased with the fact that this man, his mother, his son are all okay. And in case you're wondering, yes, the dog's going to be okay too. So, why we got to live like this? Why do we have to live in a place where this man hears his son in the back bedroom going, "Please don't shoot me. Please don't shoot me"? In this case, a good guy with a gun, an armed homeowner, addressed these two individuals who had already attacked his dog. I mean, man, come on. Attack the man's dog? You attacked the man's dog? Really? I think he got what he deserved for tasing the dog. I got to say it. I'm hoping the one that got, shot multiple times is the one that tased the dog. Oh, well. But okay. He tased the dog, holding the son at gunpoint in his home. What do you think this young man, this young son, I don't know how old he is a teenage son. I don't know how old, he is, but really? What are we doing with here? We are literally, in a crazy world. It's a crazy world. But, oh well. I got to give this guy props. He went out there, he engaged 2-on-1, addressed it, took them both, at least hit them both. One didn't leave the scene. One was later found down the road. Again, multiple gunshot wounds. And the bad guy's being held on $700,000 bond. And Murfreesboro PD has announced there will be absolutely no charges against the homeowner, as it was clearly self-defense. Great. Now, when you're sitting there 3 o'clock in the morning, and we're going to be doing some weekday streams coming up about home protection plans, home defense plans, home safety plans, things like that. Take this scenario, run through it in your mind. Would you be ready to do this? Do you have the option to do this? How would this play out if it was in your house or your family? Every time when I go through these streams, I'm going through the back of my mind, how would this play out if I was found myself in the middle of this? And we'll talk about it and coming up with a home defense plan and home safety plans. Not because I want this to happen, not because I think it would be a great thing if this happened, because hell, I definitely don't. But because, you know what? This is the world we're living in right now. And unfortunately, I think we all need to be prepared and have a little bit of a pre-planning in our mind and a little bit of pre-planning in our soul, because you know what? These idiots are out there and they're doing stuff like this. Do have a little bit of an update for gun control stuff. As we've been following the Illinois assault weapon ban saga, we had the wonderful injunction issued by Judge McGlynn, who pretty much came out with that quote we had on the stream a couple weeks ago about, the actions of, one or two people don't warrant infringing on the constitutional rights of everyone in the state. Totally agree, Your Honor. We have the Seventh Circuit temporarily lift the injunction, reestablishing the ban. It's been filed up to Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who was over the Seventh Circuit. She is currently considering whether to block the ban from being enforced while the case is being appealed. She can issue an injunction, or she can bring it before the full Supreme Court to issue an injunction. There is a good chance that the ban will be ruled unconstitutional, especially if it goes all the way up to the Supreme Court, if it's judged much in the same way as the Bruin, New York City case was judged. So, again, we'll see how this plays out. Right now, she has not come up with anything yet, but we're sort of TikTok watching the clock to see how this plays out. Secondly, the pistol brace saga. Still no news on that. No news, of course, being bad news, meaning that in 17 days, a bunch of our fellow citizens all get to become felons because they bought something that was totally illegal for the last over 10 years. I did the stream earlier this week where I did Pistol Brace Saga 2, where I showed some of the options that were in there as far as changes that could be made to braced firearms to make them fit under the new rules that are being changed by the ATF. Again, if they change the law, they suspend the law, they say that ATF was overstepping, we don't have to do that, but we're going to have 17 days on the clock, so I went ahead and started working on some of my collection, getting them transferred over. And again, I shared that stuff out on stream because I think this is something we all need to be aware of, especially if you happen to be one of the people like me who owns a braced firearm or two. It is what it is, but, que sera, sera. Now, as we go through all this stuff, we talk about a lot of different things on the channel. Yes, their guns are sometimes used in crime, sometimes used for a bad reason. There are times that guns are used for, inappropriate, very stupid things. However, I look at the incident in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, that this individual there may well have saved 2 or 3 lives, plus who knows, possibly the life of the dog as well. We see good guys with a gun doing good. We see good guys with a gun intervening in these things. So we can't automatically say all guns are bad or all guns are good. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. She's, absolutely anti-gun, not really anti-gun, but more scared to death of them. And I told her, I said, okay, my question to you is, how many people a year are killed by cars driving up and down the road? She said, but yeah, cars serve a useful purpose. I quoted Murfreesboro. I quoted some other good guy with a gun cases. She said, okay, I guess I see your point. A gun is an inanimate object. It just sits there. It doesn't do anything. In the right hands, in the hands of a good guy, in the hands of a well-trained, honorable individual, it's an amazing tool. In the hands of a bad guy, it can be an amazingly bad tool. So again, from that standpoint, it's our job to keep up with and be ready, be trained, protect ourselves, protect our family, and potentially protect our community. You never know what's going to happen next. That's all I've got, folks. Be smart, be safe. Good night. Bye.